Hi, welcome to the Healing Mama Show. I'm Sharon Showmaker, and I'm here with my dear friend, Brittany Hobbs. And together we are the Healing Mamas on a mission to reconnect with ourselves, to build community, to evolve the different areas of our lives so that they are more aligned with our most vital and thriving state in our dreams. And so we've created this space to be able to have conversations that we think would benefit other mamas and we know are really beneficial to us. So I'd love to invite Brittany to drop us in here for a minute and allow our little container to be formally started.
Yes. And for those of you who can, if you want to grab a candle and have it ready, I know, Sharon, you have the natural sun to just light up the whole
Yeah.
space around you. So
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm like the breeze, the candle is not going to work here. So I'm going to, thank you for the reminder that that fire is always like over top of us. So,
yeah, so if you just want to close your eyes and start tuning out the external world and start focusing in on our internal world. Slowing down and letting your breath be the guide. And maybe even bringing your focus to breathing into your heart space. And as you breathe in, just imagine breathing in sheer joy and love. And seeing that as a light flickering on and growing in your heart space. And feel it tingle through every cell in your being. Really tuning into what does it feel to be filled up with joy and love and vitality. Letting it fill you up to the point that it is able to emanate off of you in waves, to where you're becoming your own glowing beacon in this world. And taking one more slow, super deep breath in all the way down to your root. And then when you feel ready, just slowly opening your eyes and gazing around your space. And then if you want, you can light your candle just to signify this space being open and all of us coming together to gather exactly what we need for each of our own unique highest good.
Thank you for that. And it feels really, oh gosh, I needed to tap into that invitation to that joy filled bliss, that feeling of that I don't feel like many of us tap into as often as as would serve us as mamas. Like we have so much that we're juggling and trying to navigate and fires to put out that, joy and playfulness and fun kind of gets put on the back burner. And what I'm wanting to weave in and make more space for is to invite in joy and fun and playfulness while I do all the other things that that are required and part of the responsibility of being a mama, being an adult. And yeah, how do we find that balance of following our heart and what we love, and also showing up and doing and being what is being asked of us as we navigate uncharted territories as mamas.
Hmm. Yeah. And I know, as many of us probably do, we get requests from our kiddos to play all of the time. So walking that tightrope of we have all of this that is on our plate, and we don't want to miss out on these opportunities with our kids, especially when they're so young and really crave that connection time and that one-on-one time. Um, and yeah, I know just before we got on this call, you were sharing some great stories about being really present with playing with your little one and what that was doing for you. And if you'd want to share that again, and then we can kind of take the conversation from there.
Yeah, I first want to like reflect on the tenderness that feels alive, because I feel like I have been really distracted lately, or the past, as I've been trying to pour into creating my business, my sense of like sovereignty and financial freedom, that I I don't feel like I have gotten as many requests to play with my children as because I just don't feel like I was being as available. And so as we've made this transition into this new space that we moved to, there's been a lot of stuff to do as far as like organizing, getting things unpacked, but there's also so much beautiful space to explore, or to create a new invitation to play or sit with. Like even our bed, my bed has the morning sun come in and it's just bright, and having my children, they wanted teddy bears. Like they listened to a boxcar story, and we left behind and got rid of a lot of their stuffed animals when we came to Costa Rica. And last week they all wanted bears. And so over the weekend we went to, and they used some of their Christmas money, and each of them found a little bear that they now have. And the other morning they were in my bed, and it's just a different energy than where we were at. And so I was like making little voices and playing with their bears and having them do silly things and talk, and just the laughter and the moment, like that memory, that priceless memory that unfolded from me being present and dropping into play with them there. And the one I was telling you about earlier is my son had asked me to like play in the dirt with him with some of his construction trucks. And truly I didn't really have time for that, but I did want, I could feel that void and the amount of time that we had invested and played solely with his like lead. And so before we went and got the trucks, we were just sitting down there with sticks, and I was gathering flowers and making a little arch with a little twig and sticking it in the dirt and putting like little flowers everywhere. And then we went and got the actual toys and played some more. And like I was present with him, and he was having me do things and move trucks and move dirt and soil and load it up someplace else. And just from like being in play, like stretching and leaning, or when we were playing with Legos, like they were looking for certain parts, and just like the movement that kids do just by playing, like even if they're seated, like there's just like they're in their bodies and they're constantly moving. And I've noticed that I've neglected some of that, and that by dropping in and being present and playing with my kids for these moments, like that it gave and filled my cup, whether it was like making like little fairy, like little arches and flowers, or being with them and stretching and like moving parts of my body as I looked for Legos with them. And yeah, I just, the amount like like the mom guilt could really creep in with like how many memories we didn't create over the past couple years because of like where we were living, or it really wasn't conducive to us like having space to gather or sit or play. And I just am really ready to make up for that lost time is how I'm feeling. So
Mhm.
that's what's alive, some tenderness there.
Yeah, yeah. No, as you were telling the story about the voices with the teddy bears, I was thinking of I've been reading this series to Brenna, and they're like really thick books, and we're on like book 7 or something. And anyways, I do voices, and one of them is this like 7 foot tall goblin, but he's supposed to have a high pitched voice. So I have a high pitched goblin voice. And Brixton was really interested in learning about weather. So we have a Magic Treehouse fact tracker book on weather. And as I'm reading this to them and we're learning about clouds and we're learning about drafts and all of that, he's like, I want you to do Sandor's voice, the goblin voice. And so I start reading their weather book to them in this high-pitched goblin voice. And they got such a kick out of it. And they learned a lot while we were reading, but they thought that they were having a school lesson from the goblin. And so that just made like a super fun, simple memory. So it also doesn't have to be, in a particular time or a particular space. And yeah, I easily feel mom guilt anytime I'm like, oh no, I need to do this, or okay, I have, so many minutes to be present for this. But also trying to reflect on all the times, like even something as simple as putting on my daughter's favorite songs while we're cooking dinner together and having a little dance party in between stirring or chopping, and just singing the lyrics to each other as we're cooking, like creates really fun, powerful, present memories while also still accomplishing some of those to-dos that we have to get done as well.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. One, I want to know what the series is, the thicker one that Sandor character comes out of. But I feel like that's another aspect of the community, like finding books and sharing about books that we're reading. So you have to
Mhm.
tell what's the book.
Yeah, Keeper of the Lost Cities is the
Ooh,
series, and it has elves and trolls and goblins, goblin bodyguards, and
I love that. And the other part that oops, I, I'm sorry. I'm just for, I guess for the audience, for inquiring minds, like my Wi-Fi is down, and so I'm using my cell service, and I'm perched in the jungle because on my phone,
on a hill.
because on a hill, I know, like I could literally slide down at any moment, and my children are like sliding boxes down. So it doesn't feel like a very professional environment, but my heart is happy because I have always wanted to try to, yeah, create, have nature be my office. And so I'm in the midst of playing and stepping into that and trying to figure that out. So there's lots of distractions, like phone telling me it's wanting to die and 20%, and children getting ready to take a box down a dirt hill. But this is literally like part of what I want to create. And so like it feels surreal to be here. But what I was going to say is Julie from I think it's like The Brave Learner is the book she wrote, and I think she does like all these like Brave Writer is her like kind of offerings. And there was a podcast that she wrote one time about us delighting in our children, but also like creating moments and living our lives in ways that like would prompt our children to delight in us, like for your children to like be so delighted by you using that silly voice to like narrate something and pretending they're in school. Like the gift of being present and giving these moments to our children, whether it's like singing one of the songs. There's a little book that we like to read. It's called The Brute Family, and it's like an older book, and it's just like a little short book, but it talks about like this little family of creatures. I don't know what they are, but they kind of look like trolls a little bit, but they they're called the brute family, and they eat like stick and stone porridge, and no one's happy, and they're just like "Meh." And then this little baby brute goes into his day and finds this little good feeling, and he brings it home, and then their papa decides, instead of like to bring and forage like sticks and stones for their stew, he like forages berries and some other like edible yummy things. And so this whole family goes from being like this brute grouchy family to like being this really bliss filled happy little good feeling family. And it just reminds me that sometimes, and I got it because sometimes I feel like we're the brute family sometimes, like that we can drop. I know it's like not really, but there are moments where life feels like really heavy and we're just in ruts, and like we're not tapping into that joy that's always accessible to us, that we get too busy, or that can be contagious. And like the opposite feeling, like that grumpy feeling, can be contagious in a family, with five
Mhm.
people navigating different things. So I got it a long time ago when we just had my daughter, but there was an element of it where I was like, I can recognize like just the little grump energy that sometimes can show up in a family. And then you just get in this, like we've been talking about, like rewiring and chemical changes, and how sometimes what actually isn't working for us still feels like comfortable because it's familiar and it's certain, when uncertainty can be scary and unknown to our bodies. So yeah, that book, the little brute family, I just feel like we're coming out of our, I don't know, they're just like little brute grump energy and tapping into that little good feeling. And then once it has arrived, it's like, now they say thank you and delicious and how lovely, And so it just reminds me like how many people go through the motions of like cooking dinner in like a really like low vibrational or exhausted or, funky energy,
Obligatory.
obligatory, yeah, which becomes resentful. And then how we could just like choose to put on a song, sing lyrics, dance around, bop around, like just be silly, be playful, and have fun, and make these more mundane things that are never going to not be there to greet us the next day, because we're always going to need another meal, multiple meals. And so I love that. Yeah, I got off on a little tangent there, but
No, the brute family sounds adorable though.
it's I'll maybe we should have a I could bring it next episode and I can read it, because it just yeah, it allowed me to recognize that part of myself, how quickly and easily we could get in a funk, and that it does take effort, or the invitation of this, like this little happy feeling, or inviting in that joy or the bliss to shift out of it.
Yeah, and so one thing we were talking about earlier is this new era that we're stepping into is kind of about following our heart. And
Right.
even when we have the obligations and the responsibilities and all that, how can we still choose things that our heart wants to do or that would fill our heart up? And so yeah, some of these moments that we've talked about, and also with the rewiring. So I'm going to hopefully pull all of this together, is, if we're stuck in our ways or in our grumpier aspects of life, or I know my family seemed to wake up in a grumpier realm, and I think there's some shifts happening today. Um, but if we're also not having new experiences, it gets hard to rewire and shift out of things. And I know it's so easy for all of us to get in these ruts and these routines, um and each day can kind of start feeling really similar to the day before. And a lot of that comes down to, I was listening to something that we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day that are running through our subconscious realm and running our programming. And 90% of those are the same as the day before and the day before and the day before. And so if we're not having new experiences and being really conscious about, what is running behind our scenes, and what new things can we experience? What are the things that do light us up and fill our hearts up, to be able to shift what those thoughts are and what those programmings are, to really create the joy filled and blissful life that I know each of us desires to live.
Yeah, I love that. And I had the most amazing, like, realization experience of how the subconscious just works without us thinking about it. And so I'll share it real quick. So, we refill our laundry bottles. So we take them to a place and they fill them up. And I went to go grab a laundry bottle, and when I picked it up, I don't, like, that's the thing, is I kind of knew that it was empty because I was knowing that it was needing to be taken someplace, like, and but in the moment, like, when I went to go grab it, I grabbed it with such, like, the force needed to pick up, like, a heavy bottle. So, like, obviously it was, like, completely empty and light, but the way that I picked it up, like, there was, like, this, like, noticeable, like, I was expecting it to be a certain weight and it was light, and it just made me realize that my body is operating like that all day long. Like, it is constantly already assessing a situation and reacting to it and making the connections on a subconscious level between my muscles, my actions, my brain, like everything, in order to do what needs to be done. And, like, it was just such a clear experience of, like, wow, this must happen. And what other things does this happen with, where my
Mhm.
body is already preparing to handle something based on a past collection of information that it's gathered, and moving from that place instead of, like, moving from, like, a very present, more conscious, and intentional space. So yeah, those thoughts. And when you have a family, each person is running with all of those thoughts too, so it's a lot to navigate, to keep ourselves from falling into those ruts. And it's a lot to navigate to support our children when we recognize that they're in those ruts.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that example. I think it's such a great one for the subconscious programming that, yeah, we're just not aware of, and our body just kicks into gear and takes care of things for us. And I was having the example I was sharing with my husband just the other night was, how the days that I go into my 9 to 5 job and my body's already slipping into this exhausted, depleted, like, I don't want to go attitude. And even if there might be something about it that I'm looking forward to, it's just automatically that's where it goes. And so, yeah, trying to rewire that. And like, on Thursday while I was at work, I was feeling a little bit more heightened and on edge just from some things going on. And just taking the moment when I could have dove back into work and stayed busy, to instead just stand there while I was waiting for my lunch to warm up and be like, okay, everything's okay. And just kind of talking to myself, like, we're okay, we're safe, and just recognizing that my body was feeling this like elevation of anxiety and rush energy, and instead trying to recognize that and then trying to shift it and be like, no, we're okay, we can be calm, we can slow down. um but if I just kept moving with the momentum of my normal day, like, it would just continue. But trying to catch those moments, and when I am being like, oh, like, I'm exhausted, I don't want to go and do this, and catching that and being like, okay, this is providing for my family right now. I really enjoy my coworkers, and I'm looking forward to this part about my day. Instead of, I think it's very easy to get focused in on the negative things, and yeah, and to just let that programming run. But when we catch that programming and we know we want to shift it, to just pause and be like, and talk ourselves through it, or offer ourselves a new thing to focus on or a new perspective.
Yeah, I love that because so many of us are in situations or in areas of our lives we want to change or grow or shift things. And a lot of the shifts can't just happen with the snap of a finger, right? And so for us to be able to, like, one, change our experience of it, like until we actually can shift and move out of our current environment or work situation or where we are with our partners or funks we may be in with our kids, like we want it to change immediately, but likely there's a process that needs to unfold. And I always think of, like, even when I'm ready to shift something, so if something's gotten funky in my relationship or with my children, like, and I want to change it and I begin taking the actions to change it, those actions aren't always immediately like reciprocated. And like, I see it as like, I'm still swimming in the ripples of my current experience, like of what I've created, and trying to trust the process. Can you hear my child in the background blowing on a show? Okay. um, and so that's good. And so how do one, like, how do I stay accountable for myself? How do I stay in a state of acceptance and forgiveness for what my current reality is? How do I shift my experience and my mood and like how I show up to start that shift and to start changing things? Because if we stay in that negative place, like that's not going to bring us in to the reality that we really want, right? That's only going to attract more of the funky energy and frequency and all of that.
Yeah, and I think it's so easy to get lured into that the grass is greener, right? If only I had this different job or this different relationship or lived in a new place. And, if we aren't able to shift our energy and our thoughts and our body's response to our current situation, we're going to take all of that programming into that new situation and we're just going to recreate the old situation. And so that's something I'm really sitting with right now, or the things that I'm really craving change in. How do I create that change within me now and finding the positive things and feeling lit up, even though it's not even though it's not in that new way that I want it to be yet, so that when I get to where I want to be, I've changed how I'm going about it, how I'm feeling and processing it, so that the new thing that I'm trying to create, I can go right into that energy.
Yeah, I love that. And we, um, as 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 we've shifted, and there's nothing like a move, especially if it feels like an up level of a move to, like, okay, fresh start, like where we can create new habits, we can create new patterns, but like especially with the intensity of everything that is alive during a move and stress and all of the stuff that comes with it, like we definitely had a moment where it was like even though this is a fresh start, like we're still the same people with our same patterns, with our same habits, with our same like day in and day out way of showing up. And as I say that, I'm like, I feel like sometimes like I'm painting my life out to be like this negative awful thing, but and it's not. It's amazing and it's supported and it's beautiful and I'm literally living parts of my vision board, and we're still humans that are trying to navigate all that we've been exposed to in life, all that needs to be healed, all that we don't want to recreate in our children. And so we did have a moment where it just felt like it's a fresh start, but guess what? We're all still the same. Like we didn't wave a magic wand, and all of our same programming and patterns and habits came to this new place as well. And so, yeah, it is like, what is that saying? Like, no matter where you are, where you go, there you are, you know? And like, so like, and this new place is definitely supportive to us growing and evolving and getting to a more healed place. And And, but there are still like and I was sharing with you earlier how like I'm trying to create, like, no matter where I go, here I am with my habits of maybe not taking care of something right away that needs to be done, or putting something off, or wanting to do something but not making time for it. And so I've been consciously taking little steps to support myself in overcoming that pattern, because I'm I'm over it. Like, there's things that I want to shift and I want to show up differently. So I've been doing little things, and they feel like such very small wins, but I'm recognizing them and noticing them and celebrating and trying to support myself so that I leave behind the parts of myself that aren't serving me, and fully stepping into the parts that do, and that I want more of. So yeah, yeah, always, like you always, like, life's mystery school, right? And
Mhm.
and what lessons, and really, yeah, what actions can I take if I say I want us to be a certain way? Like, what can I do to actually support myself and to break the patterns and the habits that do not serve me and that I want to shift?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I love that, and it's an ongoing process, and just as a reminder to all of us to be really compassionate and loving with the process, because every human is going through it. And something that I found really validating that a coworker was sharing with me just yesterday is I walked in on a conversation she was having about Mother Teresa, and and I was like, "Oh, that sounds interesting. What was she actually like as a human?" And she's like, "Well, actually, as a matter of fact, they released her journals at some point, and she was sharing how she had read through them out of curiosity." And she was sharing how even Mother Teresa, like a common theme was having a lot of self-doubt and even questioning like the existence of God and religion and some of that. And I was like, wow, I was like, that that honestly feels really validating to me as a human, that somebody who created such a legacy out there surrounding religion and God and giving, still was able to accomplish that while navigating like some inner turmoil about, her purpose and what she was out there standing for. So anyways, the compassion for ourselves, and we can still move forward towards, what it is that we are here to create in this world. You're muted.
Um, the parts that stand out for me with that is, like, one, how, like, I know you're wanting to shift out of your 9 to 5, and you already recognize, like, yeah, I really do like my coworkers and things like that. But like, how even like not our most desirable experiences are still gifts and are still things that are going to enrich our lives and give us wisdom. And the other part of that is just like how we can take that experience of our own, like Mother Teresa, whether you're doubting spirituality or God or anything, but as a mom, like, how many things are we like uncertain of, or that we're doubting along the way? But when we're present and we continue showing up and we continue putting like one foot ahead of the other and taking action, that we are leaving that legacy for our children. Like, we are creating a legacy, and our presence, and then our recommitment to whether inviting more bliss in, or being more present or more available or more patient, like all of these things are the work in progress and the baby steps needed to continue like creating that legacy that, maybe we don't like have fully anchored into our reality, and there may be some shifts we want to make, but it's those like aligned little baby step actions that we can take and begin noticing, that allows us to, yeah, to leave that legacy, that, that who would have thought that that's what her journals would have reflected.
Yeah, and like I said, like more power to her, and just with me and my own like topics of doubt that I have within myself. Like there was something that I really needed to hear yesterday when she was sharing that. I'm like, whew, like that feels like okay, I'm doing okay. I can keep moving forward on this path. So for anybody else who needed to hear that, that even the really great, well-known people who are leaving legacies, they haven't got it all figured out, but they're still able to continue moving forward.
I love that. That sounds like a beautiful place to kind of like just close off and just like, yeah, just invite our listeners and ourselves. I know that as soon as I talk about something on one of these episodes, that it really does like take up space in my heart and in my life. And I begin to contemplate that and hold space for me to observe and witness. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to be really focusing on the baby steps, right? And not beating myself up over any doubts or where I'm not quite at yet, and have that compassion and that grace, and take more time to like, I think even just the intention of inviting in more joy or playfulness allows it to like take stake and begin like cultivating and begin growing and have space to reside. Because you'll notice, I know I notice that if I'm inviting in joy, then I can see moments where I'm like, "Ooh, this doesn't feel like I'm in that intentional place of inviting joy." And what can I do? Can I put on music? Can I dance? How do I balance the things that I have to do and that my heart wants to do to make all of it come together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love all of that you shared and am in agreement with it. And yeah, we get to choose how we want to feel. And sometimes we choose the path of wallowing, and other times we're able to rise above and be like, I don't like feeling this way, and I'm going to choose this. And this is what I'm going to do to create that shift. And so,
Yeah. It reminds me again, like the beginning of the conversation a little bit is like how sometimes it may feel more comfortable for us to be in that wallowing state, or and subconsciously we're recreating that. We're actually mapping things out to invite more of the wallowing in. And so, yeah, just really being like curious about our subconscious, and if we are in that wallowing or rut, like how is it serving us, and what is something small that we could do to shift it, so that, because I think if consciously no one would ever want to be in that wallowing state. So for us to find ways to support ourselves back into the joy and the bliss and the play and the vitality.
yeah. So, all of our homework for the weekend, where are we wallowing and how do we shift to get more of that joy and that bliss, even in the smallest of moments?
Yeah, little micro doses of like, just like, yeah, that joy, the bliss, the 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 moments where we can recognize and see where we're thriving. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and creating new neural pathways throughout our body and rewiring the responses so that our body is creating and craving more of that joy and that bliss, and instead of this old wallowing pattern that we've had in whatever area we're wallowing in.
yes, I love that. Yes to more bliss, more play, and yes to getting the wisdom out of the wallowing if it's present in our lives.
Yeah, and I feeling complete.
I am. Thank you so much for coming and joining this conversation with us. Please share if anything resonates with you. Share with friends if there's other mamas or other humans that you think would benefit. Like and subscribe. And yeah, we are excited to be crafting and cultivating an area where we can support each other, listening and observing and reflecting and taking actions and encouraging growth amongst all of us. So stay tuned and yeah, have a beautiful weekend of inviting in more bliss and more joy.
Yes, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye.